Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. Our first story is about an incident in a church parking lot. One mean person got a good lesson. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Never piss off an imaginative man. My cousin was getting married, and not having ever been to a wedding at her denomination, I went to the wedding rehearsal to make sure I knew what to expect. I arrived in the church's car park, quite a large lot, to see a man shouting at a police officer who was telling him that the police could not and would not get involved, and he could always seek a civil remedy. Having parked and being quite nosy, I take a closer look. A white van, a Transit I recall, had been parked in the middle of the car park, over several spaces, and from the lettering it belonged to a small builder. Now, this car park is clearly marked as being private property and for church users only. Parked closely around the van so they blocked it in completely were around 10 other cars. It was going nowhere. Being early, I entered the church and was greeted by the minister. We got to chatting, as you do, and I asked him about the van. He told me that it belonged to a local builder who, over the course of several months, had acted as if the car park was his private property and would always park inconveniently for other users, and had been known to just dump building rubble along the back fence, leaving it for the church to clear away. Apparently, the minister had spoken to him and asked him to be respectful of his congregation, and had been rudely asked, "What the F are you going to do about it?" Now, this church had a very good choir who every year went on a 2-week tour, and this year they were going to Germany to sing in other churches of their denomination. The minister had arranged for the minibus to pick up the choir from the church early that morning to take the singers to the airport. When the church members arrived, he'd asked them to park all around the van and then cheerfully told the builder that they would be back in 2 weeks. As it was on private property, the police just wouldn't get involved. It's always the quiet, patient ones you need to be on the lookout for, and I'd like to hope that a decent priest is the patient type. And our second story. Report me for breach of contract? Be prepared to lose your life's work. I own a construction equipment dealership specializing in excavation gear. The main brand I carry has a dealership every 2 blocks, to the point that there are over 800 in the lower 48 states alone. They do this to keep prices down because dealers have to compete with each other. My story starts in 2005. Business was booming. I was making 15% on all new gear and selling it by the truckload. I was one of the largest dealers in the U.S., and I was the largest in my region. The factory provides us with the machine as well as accessories for it. As a dealer, we're not allowed to sell non-authorized aftermarket accessories if the machine itself is being financed through the factory. I had many complaints about the lowering quality in accessories made by the factory, to the point that I was no longer comfortable putting my name anywhere near it. I asked a friend of mine that deals only in used excavators where he gets all his gear, and he introduced me to a factory in China. Long story short, I go visit the supplier and impressed, and from that day on, only use aftermarket accessories. I get around the financing issue by selling all machines with no gear, which means no quick couplers, buckets, or hydraulic thumbs, and getting that financed. Then the customer has to pay cash for the accessories. If that's an issue, I have a secondary bank that will finance them, just not at 0%. In addition to a better quality product, I can now provide a much better price. For example, a 24-inch dig bucket would typically sell for about $1,500, and we would buy it for $1,200. I'll now sell it for $700 and pay my man in China about $300. This, of course, helped me get more deals, which would have gone to other dealers. Now, instead of being able to call up another dealer and take a machine in on trade if I don't have it, I can only get them from the factory. Meaning, instead of needing to hold $1 million to $1.5 million of inventory, I was having to hold about double that. At one point, I sell a machine in the heart of another dealer's territory, non-restricted I may add, and the customer turns out to be the dealership owner's neighbor. This pisses off the other dealership to no end, and he finds out where my price advantage is coming from. His neighbor tells him that he didn't pay for the accessory separate, and he takes this as he financed it all. The other dealer turns me into the factory and implies that I've always used aftermarket gear and that I've always financed it through the factory. neither of which are true. He made enough waves that the factory sent people out to inventory my lot and make sure I actually had all the machines on my lot that I claim I do, and to make sure all the accessories I claim are theirs actually are. They audit my sales for the last 8 or 9 years of our business relationship and going through everything with a fine-tooth comb. The kicker? They don't let me use any financing they offer while they're searching for a non-existent error/scam on my part. After about 2 months of having 2 or 3 men going through all of our paperwork, inspecting every signature, and calling over 150 different customers, I get the green light to keep selling, and they leave. Unfortunately, this turns what should have been the height of the season into one of the worst quarters I've ever had. Time for the revenge. In our 2008, as you may be aware, the world ended. Dealers were getting ready to close down. I went from making 15% on the new machines to making 5%, and I went from over doubling my money on each accessory to selling them at $100 over cost. I'm proud to say I didn't lose a single penny during this. I eventually had to cut back my sales staff, but we never lost a cent. Anyway, dealers were trying to get rid of their inventory because they didn't want to have to pay for it when the flooring expired. Well, flooring started expiring, and the dealers didn't have networks in place to be able to sell them far enough or suppliers in place to sell them cheap enough, so they were getting stuck. At this point, I was selling everything cheap, but was still selling it, and still making at least $2,000 a sale, so I didn't run out of flooring on a single item. Once a dealer ran out of flooring and couldn't pay for their gear, the factory would be responsible for trucking it back to their distribution centers, and then they would be stuck with all the gear. I struck a deal with the factory, and the short version is the other dealers were now getting free extended flooring and weren't paying for their machines. If I needed it or could sell it, they would pay my shipping expense so I could sell it. The other dealers were mostly fine with this because I was freeing them of hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt every month. Well, most dealers love this. Out of these 7 or so dealers in my area, I would only take trades from 6 of them. That's right. I stuck the dealer that turned me in with every single item he had. He tried to get me to take them, literally offering me thousands of dollars to do so he wouldn't have to either pay the factory or lose his contract with them. Well, it came to the point that our state had about $2.5 million worth of inventory on hand across all 7 dealers. Guess what? Nearly half of that was all on Dealer 7, and his inability to sell them and inability to pay for them cost him his contract with the factory and his dealership as a whole. Once things started turning around, I had the chance to actually buy his location, building, land, shop, etc., but turned it down. Another dealership did buy it and actually hired him on as manager. After a few months, though, he got fired, as he just couldn't close a deal anymore. And our last story. Withhold my pay? Time to lose your business. So this all happened around a year ago. I was a senior in high school, and my friend and I were looking for some spare cash to be made naturally, so we went window shopping for jobs at our local mall. After browsing for any store that was possibly hiring, we walked past a pillow kiosk. The kiosk donned a "Now Hiring" sign, so my friend and I applied. Luckily for us, the owner was there and hired us on the spot. Red flag. He took our names, addresses, and emails. No social security, but I'll get to that later. Breakdown of the job. Stand at the pillow stand, approach people, and ask them to buy overpriced pillows. If we sold X amount of product, then we would be able to make commission. Before I press on, I need to say my father has always given me this golden advice. Always have evidence of your hours, to which I have taken photos of my punch times for every job I've had. Right? Moving on. Our bosses were 2 Israeli gentlemen who said we would be paid every Wednesday. They were personal checks. Again, a red flag. I worked there for 2 weeks without a hitch, making commission for nearly every day I worked there. 3rd week rolls around, and the mall wasn't as busy as it normally was, possibly attributed to nice weather, and I had no chance of making commission for that day. Oh well, I think. It's no big deal. I was wrong. Sort of. As it turned out to be a hassle for me, financially crippling for them. The day after I missed commission day, I get a call while on my lunch hour at school. OP, it's me, boss man. I see you did not sell much pillow yesterday, and this is being unacceptable. I will not be paying you for this week. But Mr. Bossman, that's illegal. You have to pay me for this week. I cannot pay you for this week. You did not sell many pillow yesterday. Oh, man. Oh man, here it comes. As an angsty high school senior, I couldn't wait for this. I knew what was coming. As I documented my hours and everything, I showed up at the pillow stand after school to confront him, and once again he says that he cannot pay, but this time he said I cannot prove my hours. See, he says as he pulls up the now blank punch card. Oh, that's unfortunate, but see, as I pull up my phone with all the pictures on it, he gets really hesitant and visibly distraught. Do you want me to call the IRS, I said. You do not need to call them. Why you threaten me? I will pay you only because you do threaten me and feel like untrue things will be said to the IRS, said Mr. Bossman. To sum up the next part of my story, my friend and I quit that day. We got paid in full 3 days early, again personal check, and, oh, that's right, I called the IRS to report tax evasion, as the bosses never took taxes out of our checks, never took our social. We got audited and had to pay roughly $50 in back taxes. However, they were no longer at the mall the following week. They'd mentioned having a yearly contract that was up in December, and this was May. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.